The hum of the engines filled the cabin of Flight 472 as it sliced through the pale dawn over the Atlantic. Row 13 sat in the middle of the economy section, where people either slept or pretended not to notice one another. Seat 13F was by the window, and the woman sitting there had the look of someone who didn't belong on a commercial flight. Her posture was too straight, her eyes too aware. She wore civilian clothes, jeans, a black hoodie, but the faint tan lines on her wrist where a watch used to sit, the kind pilots wore, betrayed her past. She kept her gaze fixed outside the window, where the sky was beginning to tint orange. Every few minutes, she tapped her fingers against her thigh, a rhythm that only combat pilots knew, a pattern for fuel checks mid-sortie. The flight attendants rolled past offering breakfast trays. She declined. Her name on the boarding pass said Elaine Carter, but that wasn't the name anyone who had flown with her would recognize. Out there, years ago, her call sign was Falcon. The flight was bound for DC, routine and uneventful. At least until the seatbelt sign blinked on again and the captain's voice came over the intercom, unusually calm but tight. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some communication issues with air traffic control. Please remain seated while we sort things out. Elaine frowned. The radio silence in the sky wasn't just issues. She could tell from the change in altitude, the subtle shift in engine tone, that they had been diverted slightly off course. 10 minutes later, she noticed them, two faint shapes in the distance. Sleek, gray, and fast. F-22 Raptors, closing in from the left flank. Her stomach dropped. The civilian plane had gone off the radar grid, and NORAD had scrambled interceptors. The passengers around her began whispering as one of the Raptors pulled up alongside the cockpit, its angular frame glinting in the sunlight. The pilot gestured with his hand through the canopy, but there was confusion in the airliner's cockpit. The captain's voice broke through again, trembling this time. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been instructed to follow new coordinates. Everything is fine. Please stay calm. Elaine's pulse quickened. She knew those hand signals, every flick of the wrist. The airliner's pilot didn't. He was trying to communicate with a code he didn't understand. And that could go wrong very fast. She unbuckled her seatbelt. A man in 13E turned toward her. Hey, you can't, seatbelt signs on. I know, she said quietly, and for the first time, her voice carried authority that didn't belong to a passenger. She moved down the aisle toward the cockpit. A flight attendant tried to stop her. Ma'am, you can't. Your pilots are about to misread an intercept signal. If they bank left right now, those Raptors will take it as an evasive maneuver. You'll have 30 seconds before they light up the sky. Let me in. The attendant froze, uncertain, but something in Elaine's eyes, steady, trained, made her nod. Moments later, Elaine was in the cockpit. The captain looked up, startled. Who are you? Former Air Force. Fighter wing, out of Langley. Your escorts think you're off course and not responding. Let me talk to them. The co-pilot frowned. We've been trying, radio's dead. Then switch to guard channel. The captain hesitated, but she was already reaching for the headset. Her hands moved instinctively, flipping switches, adjusting frequencies. The cockpit filled with static, and then a sharp voice cut through. Unidentified commercial aircraft, you are entering restricted airspace. Respond immediately or prepare to be intercepted. Elaine pressed the transmit button. Raptor flight, this is Falcon, formerly of the 94th Fighter Squadron. Stand down. You're reading a civilian carrier with a comm failure. The line went silent for a heartbeat. Then, say again, Falcon. Did you say Falcon? That's affirmative. You're tracking Flight 472, Delta Civilian, transponder malfunction. Do not engage. Another pause. Then a different voice, calm and incredulous. Falcon, this is Viper 1. Holy hell, is that you? You're supposed to be retired, she said, cutting him off. Yeah, long story. But if you boys shoot down a Delta 777, you're going to have a hell of a debrief. The captain and co-pilot just stared at her as the Raptors shifted formation, falling back slightly. Through the windshield, one of them dipped its wings in recognition, an old pilot's salute. Falcon, you've still got the voice, came the reply, a hint of humor in it now. Good to hear you again. We'll escort you back to the corridor. ATC's waiting. Elaine smiled faintly. Copy that, Viper 1. Appreciate the babysit. The static faded, replaced by the familiar hum of control returning to normal. The captain exhaled, shoulders slumping with relief. You just talked down 2 F-22s. Not the first time, she said quietly, handing back the headset. When she returned to her seat, the passengers were still murmuring. The man in 13E looked at her again, puzzled. Everything okay? Yeah, she said, fastening her seatbelt. Just a little turbulence. As the flight resumed its path toward DC, Elaine stared back out the window. The Raptors stayed in sight for another few minutes, flying wide and protective, before banking away into the clouds. She could still hear their last transmission echoing in her ears. Falcon, good to have you back on the net. She smiled faintly. Just passing through. But in that moment, seat 13F, passenger, civilian or not, the sky still knew her name.